Welcome to the North Carolina ABC Commission Audit Section tutorial on financial and inventory reporting. Most businesses with mixed beverage permits and some other types of ABC permitted business, depending on local legal sales areas, are required to submit financial and inventory reports on either a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis. A monthly report covers the calendar month. That would be, as an example, June 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2021. A quarterly report is a 3-month block. As an example, that would be January 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2021. And an annual report is the calendar year, as an example, 2021. Today, for time constraints, we're going to be looking at monthly reports. All the info is the same, but you are just either reporting every month, every 3 months, or at the end of the year for an annual report. Please do understand that if you received your permit, if this is your first report and you received your permit in the middle of a month, as an example, if you received your permit on July 7th, then your first report will simply be from July 7th through July 31st. If it's a quarterly report and you received your permit on, as an example, February 5th, your first report for the first quarter, which covers January, February, March, would simply be from February 5th, 2021 through March 31st, 2021. Lastly, if it's an annual report and you got your permit on, as an example, August 5th, then your first report would be from August 5th through 2021 through December 31st, 2021. All monthly reports are due 15 days following the end of the month. As an example, June 2021 would be due before July 15th, 2021. Quarterly reports are due 15 days from the end of the quarter. Again, as an example, your first quarter from January through March of 2021 would have been due before April 15th, 2021. For annual reports, they are due by the end of January of the following year. So 2021's annual report would be due by January 31st, 2022. Next, we are just going to give a quick overview of what the report looks like, and then we'll take a step inside and show you the actual steps to complete the report. From our website, abc.nc.gov, please scroll down to the Audit tab. And if you would like to have written step-by-step instructions, they are available here at Audit Forms and Instructions and Financial and Inventory Reporting Form Instructions. To open the report, simply open Financial and Inventory Reporting and then key in your permit number to include any zeros. In this instance, 00302-462, and M for mixed and B for beverage. After entering in your permit number to include any zeros and the M for mixed and B for beverage, please enter your 4-digit PIN number. This number would have been supplied to you at your initial inspection by your compliance officer or auditor. You would have also received at least one letter from the North Carolina ABC Commission Audit Section. But if you do not have that number available, please feel free to reach out to your compliance officer or call the ABC Commission Audit Section line at 919-948-7942. After you hit enter, you will see this page on your screen. This shows you this is the business information for your particular business. Financial and inventory reporting is located here in the bottom right corner. And again, when we click on this, today we will be looking at a monthly report. Again, we're just going to do a quick overview so that you can see what the report looks like. Today we're going to pretend that we're sending in a report for June, the month of June 2021. We're simply going to choose the date field to include the calendar month of June 2021, 6/1/21 through 6/30/21, and hit continue. The top portion of your report is your sales. These are your sales in dollars, what you sold to your customers for wine and malt beverage. Malt beverage just being another name for beer. Mixed beverage, simply another name for liquor. Food and non-alcoholic beverages, which are regular food and non-alcoholic beverages sold as a meal. And then there's a miscellaneous department for everything else. Beer and wine would be the dollar amounts that you sold for beer and wine combined. Mixed beverage, the dollar amounts you sold for liquor combined. And food and non-alcoholic beverage, the dollars you sold for food and non-alcoholic beverages combined. Miscellaneous would include everything else that's not food and beverages. Examples might be t-shirts or tobacco or merchandise. For a private club or bar, that would include membership fees or any facility usage fees. For a sports club, that would be anything related to the sport, such as memberships, green fees, cart fees, pro shop sales. And for hotels, that would be things related to furnishings and lodgings. When entering your data for the report, please always remember not to use any kind of informal punctuation, commas, dollar signs, etc. So if I sold $1,212.40 in beer and wine in June of 2021, I would not put any kind of commas or dollar signs, just the one single decimal point. Another way to explain the sales, entering in your sales data for the month of June, if my business took in $100, I would simply come in and say I sold $20 in beer and wine, $30 in mixed beverage, $40 in food and non-alcoholic beverage, and $10 in things unrelated to food and beverage. The second part of the report is sort of the reverse. This is your purchases. These are the dollar amounts that you paid out to any vendors for any of your licensed wholesalers for wine and malt beverage. For alcoholic beverages, that would be from your local ABC board and from your different food purveyors, distributors, grocery stores, retail outlets, farms, etc. Again, when entering in this data, please make sure that you don't enter any kind of dollar signs or commas. You would simply enter the whole number with one decimal point. The second page on the report is your liquor inventory report. We're going to cover this in much more depth in just a minute, but a quick overview. This is the first thing you would have to put is your average drink price. That's your most common mixed beverage drink price, not including beer or wine, just mixed beverage. Your shot size, most commonly 1.25 ounces, 1.5 ounces, and then a perpetual on your bottle count, which we will go into in more depth in just a minute. The financial and inventory reporting webpage will time out after approximately 1 hour. So it is best to have everything prepared before we sit down to key in the data for the report. Things that you will need are your sales summary, which may be a point of sale summary, a ledger, Z-tapes, or whatever your sales records are. Invoices for beer, wine, mixed beverage, food, and non-alcoholic beverage, and a liquor inventory. If we are using a standardized point of sale system, then you should pretty easily be able to run a monthly report. In our example, we would be looking at June 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2021. If you're using a traditional cash register or other sales method, you would either need to add up the different departments from your Z-tapes or use your ledgers to form a sales summary for that month. This example of a point of sale system monthly sales summary includes the date field that we're looking for, June 1st through June 21st, and the different departments broken down into different subcategories. Appetizers for food, appetizers, entrees, desserts, non-alcoholic beverages as examples. For mixed beverage or liquor, that would be mixed drinks, shots, and maybe open liquor. Beer, bottles or drafts, wines, red or whites, and retail, maybe things like t-shirts, cover charges, tobacco, etc. Our next step would be to take the information from our sales summary and put it on some kind of spreadsheet, notebook, whatever you feel most comfortable using to add up your different departments. I prefer Excel, so I would simply take my beer and wine sales for any of the departments, for any of those departments, and tally them up to get a total sales for beer and wine for that month. Next, I would simply do the same process for liquor, add up any of my liquor sales, and tally them up so that I know the total dollars that I sold for mixed beverages. Next, I would do the same with food and non-alcoholic beverages, and then lastly, the same with any kind of miscellaneous sales I had. Here we had t-shirts, cover charges, and tobacco, to total combined $295.50. The next thing we will do is take our purchase invoices for beer and wine and total up the total sales that we've paid out to any companies. You'll have more than me, but here we have 3 invoices, 1, 2 for beer, and a third for wine. We would simply move the sales total, $77.90 for wine, over to a spreadsheet that tallies up our different beer and wine invoices. Again, you'll have more than likely have more than three. In this case, we tallied up all our beer and wine purchases. This is the dollar amounts that we paid out to any companies, and it totaled $467.04. The next thing we would like to do is take a look at our ABC mixed beverage invoices. These would be the receipts from your local ABC board. Again, we're looking at June 2021. This says July 2021. We're just going to pretend that that was correct. Standard invoice has your order number at the top, so you'll know if you're ever missing an invoice. Sometimes there can be a gap. Your date, the dollars that you spent, and the number of containers that you purchased. Right now, for the purchase section of our financial report, we're just focused on the dollars. So this day I spent $1,614.70. On our next invoice, we spent $1,184.70. So we are going to capture that information on a spreadsheet so that we can add it up and summarize for $2,799.40. The next thing we're going to look at from that same invoice is the number of containers that we purchased. On this particular order, we bought 61 bottles. Please note that one of the bottles purchased was a 1.75 and the other 60 were the 0.75s or 750 milliliters. On our next invoice, we brought 41 bottles, and please note that 40 of them were the 0.75s and one was the 1.75 liter bottle. On our spreadsheet, out to the side, we would just notate how many bottles we bought of each. So for 750s, we bought 60 the first time and 40 the second time for a total of 100. On our 1.75, we bought one each order. The next thing we need to do is summarize the dollar amounts that we spent on food and non-alcoholic beverages. Here again, you will likely have many more invoices than I have for purposes of this video, but a mainstream invoice would include typical food items for a restaurant, to include other things that are not solely food, such as condiments, soft drinks, coffee, or tea. This invoice was for a total of $1,400.05. My next invoice was just from my produce, and I bought $185.25 in vegetables. And then lastly, I had to run to the grocery store for some incidental items, totaling $25.05. I would add those numbers to my spreadsheet and come up with a total dollar amount that I spent on food for the month of June 2021. The next thing we're going to do is a physical inventory of the liquor bottles that we have in our business at the conclusion of the period. The conclusion of the period is most often the last day of the month, last day of the quarter, the last day of the year, but is at least the last day that you are open during that time frame. And this inventory should be done prior to opening in the next periods. So for instance, in this case, we are going to be doing a monthly report for June 2021. So we would do that after we closed on June 30th or before we opened on July 1st. If you're quarterly, it would be the last day of the quarter. So that may be September 30th and before you open on October 1st. If you're on an annual report, then have fun. You're supposed to be conducting this on either New Year's Eve or New Year's morning. We're going to count all liquor in-house as the same. So it does not matter if it's an expensive bourbon, a cheap vodka, whatever the bottle is, regardless of price or class or brand, we count them all the same. The first thing you would do is go to your storage area and count any full bottles. For example, we're going to pretend that we had 20 full bottles. So again, I would go to my spreadsheet and put in that for fifths, I had 20 full bottles. And then if I had 1.75 left, I would add that in my 1.75 column. For any bottles in your traditional sales or service areas, most commonly a bar, you'll need to count in partials. So if that bottle up there was still full, then you would just count it as a 1. For everything else, you're going to count on a tenth system. So if the bottle was approximately half full, you would count it as a 0.5. If the bottle had just a marginal amount in it, a small amount, count it as a 0.1. A little bit more, a 0.2. A little bit more, perhaps a 0.3, sorry. And then I just tap it off. If you had a bottle that just had a little bit out of it, you may count that as a 0.9. Don't stress too much on this part of it. My 0.8 might be your 0.7. We're just trying to get a good determination of the amount of liquor that's left in the bottles so that we can add that up to find out how many bottles full bottles are in-house. So if you take a look at my equation, or my spreadsheet rather, we had 20 full bottles for the 750s. And then in my partials at my bar, I had 10 bottles that were about half full each. If I do the math on that, 10 times 0.5 is 5 bottles. So I had 20 full bottles in storage and approximately 5 bottles at the bar, which totals 25. Again, I just had 1.75 in storage. Now that we have all the data assembled in order to complete the report, to include a spreadsheet for our sales, a spreadsheet for our purchases, and the number of containers that we purchased, and a spreadsheet for our inventory, we're ready to sit down and open the report and key in our data. If you recall, we're going to go to abc.nc.gov, scroll down to the Audit tab, click there. Just as a reminder, any step-by-step forms and instructions are available here, but if you would, please open Financial and Inventory Reporting, and we're ready to key in our permit number. Our permit number for this test is 00302-462, M for mixed and B for beverage, so please include the MB at the end of your permit number. And then you would put in your applicable PIN number. Again, if you're not sure that number, it was supplied to you firstly at your initial inspection from your audit or compliance officer, at least another time in a letter sent from the ABC Commission for a status update or a status change. And lastly, if you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to your permit compliance officer. If you're unable to find that, please call the audit line at 919-948-7942. After you hit enter, you will see this page on your screen. This shows you this is the business information for your particular business. Financial and inventory reporting is located here in the bottom right corner. And again, when we click on this, today we will be looking at a monthly report. So once we've logged into our financial and inventory reporting page, we just need to key in the dates. If you recall, we're going to be looking at the month of June 2021. So we would key in June 1st, and using the calendar, we could go back to June 30th. This final date is always going to be the last day of a month. If you're quarterly, it's going to be the last day of the quarter. Maybe that's March 31st, maybe that's June 30th, maybe that's September 30th or December 31st. If you're annual, it's going to always be December 31st, 2021. The start date only changes when it's your very first report. So if I happen to have gotten a new permit, and let's say June the 5th, then it would be June 5th. Otherwise, it's most commonly always going to be the first day of a month. Next, I'm going to hit continue. And we see the form that we saw at the beginning of the video. The reason that we wanted to make sure that we put everything in place before we sat down to key in our data is because, as you see, this page may time out after approximately an hour. What we need to do now is put in our sales and purchases. First, we'll start with sales for wine and malt beverage. If we look back at our spreadsheet, we see that we sold in beer and wine $2,485.50. So we simply key in $2,485.50. I want to make sure we don't use any commas or any kind of punctuation, so I would not write 2,485.5. I would simply write, or key rather, 2485.5. Next, we'll take a look at our mixed beverage. Reverting back to our spreadsheet, we sold $3,842.92 in liquor in June. So we key in 3842.92. We'll take a look at our food from the same spreadsheet. Again, pretty simple, 7846.37 and 7846.37. Lastly, we'll take a look at our miscellaneous. That would be anything that's not food and beverage. Some traditional restaurants may have a zero here, and they would simply tally a zero. But since we did have some, if you recall from our spreadsheet, we'll take a look, and that was a total of $295.50. So we simply key in 295.50. If we want to calculate our totals to see that this matches our total revenue for the month, we see that we sold $14,470.29. And again, we simply broke it down into these four departments. Next thing we're going to do is take a look at our purchases, and we have a spreadsheet in place for that. So all we're going to do is take the data from our spreadsheet and key that into the appropriate place. So if you recall, on our purchases for beer and wine, we had 3 invoices, which tallied up to be $467.04. And we'll take that and stick it in here, 467.04. Again, making sure not to use any kind of commas, dollar signs, or other punctuation marks. Back to our spreadsheet. For our mixed beverage, we purchased 2 invoices. We had 2 orders that tallied up to 2799.4. So we will key in 2799.4. And for food and beverage, we will take a look again at our spreadsheet. We purchased $1,610.35. Making sure again not to use any kind of commas or punctuation marks. Again, please understand if you did not have any sales or purchases for one of the departments during the period you are recording, simply type a 0, therefore stating that you did $0 in sales or perhaps $0 in purchases for that period. So if you didn't buy any beer or wine in October, then you would simply type a 0 saying you bought $0 in beer and wine. If you didn't have any miscellaneous club activity fees in that same period, again, simply type a 0, signifying that you did $0 in sales for that department. We don't have to put any kind of purchases for anything that wasn't food and beverage that relates to miscellaneous, or if you bought any incidental items, trash bags, new bar stools, light bulbs, air conditioning, whatever that may be. If it's not food and beverage that was bought or resold, it doesn't have to be included in the report. All told, this page is pretty easy as long as we have a sales method in place and a workable spreadsheet, and we've been keeping up with our invoices. So to make sure we submitted everything, we will hit calculate totals. And after a quick review, we've decided that everything looks good. So we are going to continue to the next page of our report by simply pressing continue. Now we're at our liquor inventory reporting form. On this page, we're just dealing with liquor. We do not have to worry with beer, wine, food, non-alcoholic beverages, club activities, or anything else, just liquor. The first blank to fill in is our average mixed drink price. Again, this is just liquor, so we don't worry what the average beer price is, glass of wine, etc. If you have, most places probably have a pretty good idea what an average drink price is. If you don't, you can simply take your sales for that month and divide by how many drinks you sold. For the purposes of this report, we'll use a fairly common mixed beverage average drink price, which is $6.50. Our next blank is our shot size. Everyone should have a standard shot size. Don't worry if you have different drinks with different pour amounts. Use your most common pour amount. A good way to think of this is how much liquor you serve as a shot, or in a traditional 2-beverage cocktail like a rum and coke. Most commonly, we're going to have an ounce and a quarter, or an ounce and a half. For the purposes of this report, we'll simply use an ounce and a quarter. Having entered our average shot size, the next thing we need to do is decide which size bottles we're using. If you recall from our inventory, we had 2 different size bottles, 1.75s and 750 milliliters. If you're just using one size bottle, then you simply need to fill in one column for that size bottle. If you're using 2, as we are here, you would need to fill in for both. The first box is your beginning inventory. If this is your first time submitting a report and there was no liquor at your establishment when the permits were issued, then this is very simple. It would be a 0. If you purchased the existing inventory from a previous business at the same location and there was liquor on your first day of having permits, then please put the number of bottles in the beginning box. If you do not know that number and there is no record, simply do your best to come up with the most closely accurate number. If this is not your permit's first time reporting, then simply use the ending inventory from your last time. So your ending inventory from a monthly report for May would be your beginning inventory for a monthly report for June. If you do not have a copy of your most recent financial and inventory report, it is available on this website. When we first entered our calendar where we put in our dates, if you had scrolled down, you could have seen PDFs for any reports you've ever submitted, and we will revisit that in the latter part of this video. The next data we'll need to enter is the number of containers that we purchased during the period. Since we're doing a monthly report, this would simply be the bottles we purchased during that period. Again, does not matter what kind of class, price, brand, anything like that. Any liquor bottle registers as one liquor bottle. So if you recall from our purchase spreadsheet, we bought during the course of the year during the course of the month, two 1.75s and 100.75s. If we were doing a quarterly or an annual report, this would be all the months associated with that period. So for an annual report, it may be all 12 months or every month that you purchased liquor. Now we know our beginning inventory, our total bottles purchased, and from our beforehand preparation, our ending inventory. What this report is looking for is the total number of containers used in sales. To reach this number, we need to do a very simple math problem. We will take our beginning inventory and our bottles purchased and subtract our ending inventory. The formula for that is simply beginning inventory plus bottles purchased minus ending inventory, and that equals our containers used in sales. From our inventory we conducted before sitting down to complete the report, on the last day of the month or the first day of the month, we determined that there were 25 bottles of 0.750 milliliters left in our establishment. So on this report, we see we started with 0 bottles and we bought 100. Therefore, we know that 100 bottles came through the establishment during that month. If we ended with 25 bottles, what the report requires us to enter is the number of containers that we used. In this scenario, if we started with 0, bought 100, and had 25 left, then we must have used 75 bottles. We'll repeat the process for our 1.75s and see that we had 1 bottle left. So if we started with 0 and we bought 2, we know 2 came through the establishment. If we had 1 left over, then we must have used 1 bottle. And when we calculate our totals, we'll see that we have the inventory as we had hoped for it to be: 1 bottle for 1.75s and 25 bottles for our 750 milliliters. On a very rare occasion, you may have some bottles that were lost, stolen, or broken. This wouldn't be 1 bottle dropped. This would be in a situation if you had a robbery or perhaps a major incident where several bottles were broken. So in this scenario, if we ended with 25, but we had 10 bottles broken, then we would need to revert and say that we only sold 65 bottles. And once we calculated our numbers, we would see that the ending inventory is still there. We just had sold some less bottles because we had broken some. Again, this is very rare. It will not likely happen. I wouldn't anticipate using this very often at all. At this point, if we still needed to make any changes to the report, we're more than welcome to do so. But after a quick review, if we feel like everything looks fine, we'll simply put in our name. Keep in mind that we already know the ABC Commission is already aware of who the owners of the permittee for the establishment is. We just want to know who submitted the report in case there are any questions. Our title, that may be bartender, manager, owner, whatever your appropriate title is, and our telephone number. This will be the number that you wanted us to contact you. That may be the name of the store, the restaurant, the bar, or it may be your personal contact information, your choice, just whatever number you would want us to contact you if we had any questions. Again, if we feel comfortable and we feel that everything's been done accurate, let's hit submit and exit. Assuming everything was inputted correctly, we'll receive the pop-up that says report submission was successful. Click on the report icon to view your financial and inventory report, and we will simply click OK. From here, we see any reports that we've ever submitted. Our most recent report was submitted here. I will click on that, and it will give me a pop-up for what I just keyed in. So it's a good idea to take the time to go back in and review what was submitted so that you can determine if any mistakes were made. Again, I can take my spreadsheet and confirm that I purchased $2,485.50 in beer and wine, $3,842.92 in mixed beverage, $7,846.37 in food non-alcoholic beverage, and $295.50 in miscellaneous. Again, I would take the time to make sure that my spreadsheet says up purchased $467.04 in beer and wine, $2,799.4 in mixed beverage, and $1,610.35 in food and non-alcoholic beverages. Down at the inventory portion, we remember that we started with 0 for 750s. We bought 100. We had 25 left over, so we used 75. When I go to submit my July report, if I don't remember that I ended with 1.75 and 25 750s, I can simply revert back to this sheet and take a look to refresh my memory, and so that I can include that as my beginning inventory for July 2021. If the data displayed is different than what you intended it to be, unfortunately, there's no way to modify the report. So you can use this information to go back and resubmit a report with the correct data in the space where you didn't input the data correctly. The revised report will automatically replace the first report you submitted. If you see a blank with no 0, then that means something was rejected. Again, most commonly, that's because there's a punctuation issue. Perhaps you hit the decimal point twice. Maybe you included a dollar sign or a comma. But if everything looks like it was supposed to, then you know you've submitted the report the way you intended to. Please remember that this will become easier each time you do it. So if this is your first time submitting in the report and you found it a little challenging, do understand that it will become easy as you do it more times. As long as you keep accurate sales, keep a running tally on your purchases, and conduct an inventory at the end of the period, should be very, very easy. Of course, if you have any questions, please contact your assigned audit or compliance officer. If you're unsure who that may be, please contact the ABC Commission Audit directly at 919-948-7942 or by email at contact.abc.nc.gov. Thank you for joining us. I hope you learned something. If there's anything we can do, again, always feel free to reach out to the ABC Commission Audit section.